Today, I want to take a look at all secret and common in-game overworld events throughout the Pokemon games, starting from Generation 1 until Generation 9. These are Pokemon that are found in the overworld and are only really encountered in a static sense. So, let's get started. Starting things off is going to actually be Voltorb and Electrode. Now, these are found in Generation 1, and they can be found at the power plant. There is about 6 of them. Basically, they will perform and act as if they are fake items, the Voltorbs, and as for the Electrodes, there'll be 2 of them, and they will also pretend that they are items that you can pick up like Pokeballs. So these were actually the first overall events you can find. But there is another one from Gen 1, and that's going to be Snorlax. So over on Route 12 and also on Route 16, people usually forget about that one. These guys are level 30, one on Route 12, one on Route 16, and they require the Pokeflute to wake them up. They are part of the main story, at least one of them is, the one on Route, I think, 12, I could be wrong, or 60. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't remember the routes that well, but I think Route 12 is the one that you have to do for the story. But yes, these are basically static overworld encounters that are very common because you kind of have to encounter them. The second one is less known. People don't really go and deal with that one that often unless you do use like the bike path. Then we had the legendary birds. All of these guys can be found over in specifically Kanto. Articuno is found at Seafoam Islands and is the only one that's going to be kind of in your way along the way as you're trying to get to Cinnabar Island. So this is the only one that's kind of obvious. The other 2 are a little bit different. Zapdos is found at the power plant and Moltres is found at Victory Road. So they're a little bit more out of the way and a little bit more, not as obvious. But it is still easy to find them, but they are a little less obvious than, of course, Articuno. And finally, the last actual overworld encounter you can find in Pokemon Generation 1, so that's Red, Blue, and Yellow, is going to be none else than Mewtwo. Found at Cerulean Cave, it's going to be level 70, and it can only be encountered after hitting the Hall of Fame. So if you haven't gotten into the Hall of Fame, you won't be able to find it. Moving over to Generation 2, that being Pokemon Gold, Silver, and Crystal in Johto, we start things off with, again, the same thing we had before, which is Voltorb, Electrode, but also Geodude and Koffing. All 4 of these guys can be found specifically in Team Rocket's hideout. They're going to range between level 21 and 23, and there are about anywhere between 3 to 8 of them that you can find, and they cannot really be even fled from. You have to fight them, and they'll sort of just burst out of the ground if you step on them. So, yes, they are a little bit random, and there are quite a few of them to deal with, but these are essentially overworld encounters that you can go and run into. Of course, we can't forget about Gyarados' Shiny at the Lake of Rage. Level 30 is what this thing is. It does require you to have Surf to actually reach it, and again, it is sort of part of the story, so you do have to deal with it along the way, which makes it a little less impressive. But again, a lot of the early Pokemon games didn't have as many of these like kind of cool overworld encounters that were less known. Most of them were pretty obvious, but as for Gyarados' Shiny, it's found at the Lake of Rage. Then we have Lapras in Union Cave. Yes, so this thing is level 20, it does need Surf, and also appears specifically every Friday. Now, nowadays, most people do know about this Lapras, but back in the day, it was a less known thing because it only really appeared specifically on Fridays, which is a very specific time frame. But yeah, because of that, it made this Lapras less known and less encountered. Then we have something a little bit different. It's going to be Snorlax. So over in Vermilion City, you can actually get one, but to get it, you need something very peculiar. And that specific thing is a EXPN card, which is also known as the Pokegear. This is the only thing you could have gotten to actually get your hands on this, but basically if you had this app, you were able to get your hands on this specific Snorlax. Now, I didn't even know this Snorlax existed. This is probably on this list the one that's the, strangest one to me, but yes, there is a Vermilion City Snorlax that's level 50 that you can get in Gold, Silver, and Crystal. Sudowoodo is the next one, and of course this one is found on Route 36 and requires a Squirtle bottle. It's the only way to continue upon your actual journey. If you don't actually, use a Squirtle bottle, you will never actually make progress here. So you do need to encounter this Sudowoodo, and it's found on Route 36. Raikou, Entei, and Suicune. So, first of all, Entei and Raikou. Those 2 are going to be roaming Johto, and this is after watching them flee from the burned tower. So yes, you're going to be able to then find them in the roaming world of specifically the Johto region. However, Suicune is a bit different. It's also found roaming specifically Johto in Gold and Silver. However, this is a bit different in Crystal. In Crystal, it can be found at the Tin Tower, and here it requires the clear bell for you to be able to capture it. So yes, there is a bit of a difference in Crystal versus Gold and Silver when it comes to Suicune. The other 2, they're just the same, they just are still roaming around, and that's about it. But in terms of specifically this case, it is a little bit different. So yes, it's going to be found roaming in Johto and Gold and Silver, but in the Tin Tower in Pokemon Crystal. Once again, we're going to take a look at the legendaries. In this case, we've got Lugia, which can be found at Whirl Island. So this thing is going to be level 40 in silver, 70 in gold, and 60 in crystal, and of course requires a silver wing to be encountered. Ho-Oh is back at it again, and this time is going to be found at the Tin Tower. Of course, here's going to be level 40, 70, or 60 in crystals. So yes, again, kind of the same range you had, but just kind of the opposite from Lugia, and requires the Rainbow Wing. Next, we have an event-exclusive Pokemon, and this is Serebii at the Ilex Forest. Now, this thing is level 30, but to get it, it's only available in Crystal, so it's a Crystal-only encounter. It requires you using the GS Ball. Now, the GS Ball is an item that is, well, an event-exclusive item, and is sort of exclusive to specifically an event that took place at one point in time, or didn't take place. These events are kind of all over the place, but basically, if you had the GS Ball, you can go over to Kurt, the man who kind of makes a bunch of Pokeballs. If you bring it to him, he will examine it, and the event exclusive thing will actually happen. So it is exclusive on this cartridge, and again, it's not really a common event, and you can't really get it anymore. Moving over to Generation 3, which is Ruby, Sapphire, and of course Emerald, we find ourselves with a similar thing again. Voltorb and Electrode are again found in New Mauville. In this case is where Voltorb is found, where there's going to be 3 of them serving as fake items. However, for Electrode, it's found in Team Aqua's hideout or Team Magma's hideout, and there will be about 2 of them serving as fake items. Then there is Kecleon. You guys may remember you run into Kecleon the first time alongside Steven Stone, actually, on Route 119. But you can also find a few more of these guys around the place. So there's 2 of them on Route 119, 6 of them on Route 120, and they all require the Devon Scope, which is given to you by Steven to actually be able to find them. So it's a great little Pokemon to capture. There's quite a few of them around, so you have quite a few Kecleons to run into in the overworld. But we're already moving over to legendaries because, yes, even specifically Gen 3's Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald didn't have that many overworld encounters. So we move over to, of course, the legendaries, in this case, Regirock, Regice, and Registeel. Now, all 3 of these are in different locations. Regirock is in the Desert Ruins, Regice is in the Island Cave, and Registeel is in the Ancient Tomb. First of all, Regirock will require you to unlock the ruins in the Sealed Chamber, which requires Strength and Rock Smash. As for Regice, it's going to be basically opened just after the Sealed Chamber, and unlocking the ruins for Registeel, the tomb, is going to require you to have Fly and as well as Flash. So again, these 3 can be encountered in the overworld because they do have legendary encounters, and actually these 3 are some of the best encounters, I think, in my opinion, that we have. I like that there's a little puzzle behind each. Moving over to Latias, this thing is interesting because you got Latias and Latios, and first of all, in Sapphire version and Emerald, Latias can be found roaming, but however, in specifically the Ruby version, Latias is actually on Southern Island, but also in Emerald, it has a second encounter, which if you can only reach if you have the Eon ticket, which is an event-exclusive item. As for Latios, it's the opposite. If roaming in Hoenn, it will do in Ruby and Emerald, but then on Southern Island, you can find it in Sapphire and Emerald, but that also requires the Eon ticket. Again, this thing is only really encounterable anyways after the Hall of Fame, so keep that in mind. Kyogre. First of all, Cave of Origin is where you find Kyogre in Pokemon Sapphire. It's going to be level 45. However, if you're playing Pokemon Emerald, it's going to be found in the Marine Cave at level 70 in Emerald, which is pretty neat. Groudon, on the other hand, is going to be found in the Cave of Origins in Ruby, and of course in the Terra Cave in Emerald, which is kind of interesting because it's just kind of moving around. But nonetheless, though, it is found there. It's about level 45 in Ruby and level 70 in Emerald. Finally, we have Rayquaza, found at Skypillar in this case, level 70, and it's after watching Rayquaza visit Satopolis City, and to get there, you will require a Mac Bike to get around, and eventually you'll reach the top where you can battle Rayquaza and capture it. Sticking to Generation 3, but moving on to the remakes Fire Red and Leaf Green, we have a few interesting encounters that I think you guys may enjoy. Starting things off, we have Hypno. Yes, so Hypno has an encounter that's pretty interesting. This one is found at the Berry Forest. Now, this event is a little bit different. Like I said, it's not like your common event. Most of these are a little bit different, but basically, at the Berry Forest, you can find a wild Hypno, which is actually attacking Lostel. The player must then actually choose to either catch or defeat it in order to basically save her and get her back home. And this is, of course, the stuff that you do kind of in the, the Serebii Islands. So, again, it's not something as common. You don't really necessarily encounter this event that often if you don't do in the Serebii Islands, but it is a interesting overworld event that not many people know about. Like, this Hypno event is kind of forgotten by most people. Once more, we have to include Electrode with the Power Plant. Again, this time around, there's 2 of them that serve as fake items. Snorlax returns on Route 12 and Route 16, with, of course, the Pokeflute being required to move both of them. And we have Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres back at it again. However, there is one change here. Moltres is no longer found at the Victory Road. Instead, it's at Mount Ember. Not sure exactly why the change happened, but it did. And also, Zapdos is still at the Power Plant, and Articuno at Seafoam Islands. Mewtwo returns once more as well at the Cerulean Cave. It's still level 70, and it will be found after restoring the network machine of the Pokemon Network Center, and that's when you'll be able to actually go find Mewtwo in Cerulean Cave. Raikou, Entei, and Suicune are also in this game. Yes, because this remake did include those two. You can find them roaming around the Kanto region, and they will all be found after basically defeating Team Rocket on 5 Island. And you will have a choice between a few different starters. Like, basically, once you defeat the Team Rocket here on 5 Island, you get to choose between a Squirtle, Bulbasaur, and Charmander. If you choose Squirtle, you get to go and find Raikou. If you choose Bulbasaur, you get to find Entei. And if you chose specifically Charmander, you get to go and find Suicune. So it's kind of a cool little event. Next, we have 3 event-exclusive Pokemon. Starting things off, we have Lugia at Naval Rock. Now, to get it, you need the Mystic Ticket. Now, the Mystic Ticket is an event-exclusive item that's no longer given out. At the time, it was available back in the day. It was supposed to be a distribution event, but no longer is it really available. You can't really get your hands on it. However, if you did have it, you'd be able to get to, of course, Naval Rock. And at Naval Rock, guess what? You can go to the bottom, I guess, in this case for Lugia, and actually capture it. Ho-Oh has the exact same encounter. At Naval Rock, level 70, it requires a Mystic Ticket once again, which is an event-exclusive thing to get. And if you have it, you can go get your hands on a Ho-Oh. And finally, for Violet Red and Leaf Green, we have Deoxys. Now, to get this one, you need the Aurora Ticket. Once more, this is an, again, event-exclusive item, but if you do have it, you can use it to go to Birth Island. You just take a boat, get to Birth Island. Now, Birth Island is where you got to do this weird little puzzle. It's a bit of a confusing one, but if you do this puzzle, which requires a triangle to be moved in a specific pattern, you will summon in Deoxys, and you can capture it. It's only about level 30, so not too difficult, and you'll be able to capture yourself another legendary. Moving on to Emerald, which is the final thing we're going to talk about for Generation 3, we have ourselves a few interesting wild Pokemon from in-game events. First up is going to be Mew. Mew can be found at Faraway Island and requires you to have the old Sea Map, which is an event-exclusive item that no longer is available for us to get. There are a few methods still that you can try to do to kind of get it, but in a legitimate way, it's really hard to actually get your hands on it. However, though, this thing is pretty cool. It's found on Faraway Island. It's level 30, so pretty awesome, not gonna lie. Next, we have Sudowoodo, and this is found at the Battle Frontier. Yes, so basically, it's going to be level 40. It requires the Wailmer PAL for you to be able to actually get your hands on it. But yeah, it's a Sudowoodo that can be just received at the Battle Frontier. And just like in Pokemon Fire and Leaf Green, Lugia, Ho-Oh, and Deoxys can all be found again. Lugia, of course, at Naval Rock with a Mystic Ticket, which is event exclusive. Ho-Oh on Naval Rock with the exact same ticket. And, of course, Deoxys on Birth Island with the Aurora Ticket. Again, it's all just found in the same places, which I think is pretty neat. Moving over to Diamond and Pearl, there are a few different changes that have been made. So there are a few more event Pokemon here. Starting things off, we have Drifloon, which is found at the Valley Windworks. Now, this thing is actually interesting because in Diamond and Pearl, it actually is level 22, but in Platinum, it's only level 15, and it only appears every Friday. On every Friday, you can go there, and there will be a Drifloon just chilling middle of this whole place, which is kind of funny, but yes, you can go there and get yourself a Drifloon. Spiritomb is the next one, and this is same in Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum each. It is found on Route 209, and it's going to be level 25. Now, it will only appear after you do a specific thing. It appears each time the player uses a odd keystone and then talks to other players in the underground about 32 times. So you're going to be having to talk to a lot of people before you're even able to make the Spiritomb appear. And this event is kind of a fun one, but yes, you're going to have to do a lot of work to make it actually show up. Moving over to Rotom, which can be found at the Old Chateau. Of course, the Old Chateau is creepy and weird, but interestingly, you can get a level 15 Rotom there in Diamond and Pearl. To get it, you can simply just make sure that you've received the National Dex. Once you've received the National Dex, go to the Old Chateau, go inside, and you can get your hands on a Rotom. However, in Pokemon Platinum, it's level 20, and it only shows up at night. So, yeah, that's kind of an interesting point that I wanted to include. Next, we have the legendaries Uxie, Mesprit, and Azelf. Now, these guys can be found in different places. First of all, Uxie is in Akuti Cavern. It's level 50, and it appears after defeating Cyrus for the last time. As for Mesprit, it's found roaming the Sinnoh region, and it's also found after defeating Cyrus for the last time, and then seeing Mesprit in Verity Cavern. And of course, Azelf cannot be forgotten, found at Valor Cavern, level 50, and is also found after defeating Cyrus for the last time. Then there is Dialga and Palkia. Both are found at Spear Pillar, and if you're playing in Diamond version, Dialga will be level 47, and if you're playing, of course, in Platinum version, Palkia will be level 47. Both of them will be level 70 in Platinum, however. Also, after talking to Cynthia's grandfather in Celestic Town, that's when these two will appear in both games. Moving over to Heatran, found at Stark Mountain, a place that not a lot of people really even bother going to. But yes, at Stark Mountain in Diamond and Pearl, you can find a level 70 Heatran. In Platinum, it's going to be level 50. But basically, after talking to Buck and his grandfather in the survival area, it simply just requires you to get your hands on Strength and, of course, Rock Smash. And then you can go right through, get through Stark Mountain, reach the top, and there is Heatran. Actually, I guess the bottom in this case. But yes, Heatran's going to be there in its giant pool of lava. Then we have Regigigas. So this thing is found at Snowpoint Temple. In Diamond and Pearl, it's level 70, but in Platinum, it's level 1. Yeah, it's a bit weird. But to actually unlock Regigigas at Snowpoint Temple, you first need Regirock, Regice, and Registeel. So you need to have those three to be able to even get Regigigas and to unlock the, Snowpoint Temple to be able to get in and get it. Then there's, of course, Giratina. Now, there is actually two ways to get it. One is the Turnback Cave, and this is particularly a little bit different. But then you also have the Distortion World, which is specifically for Platinum. So in the Turnback Cave, that's where you find it in Diamond and Pearl. It's level 70. However, in the Distortion World, it's level about 47, I think. And this one is a little bit different. So basically, it reappears in the Turnback Cave if the player has defeated it in the Distortion World and then enter the Hall of Fame. So it will show up there. It's a bit of a random one, but yes, it is available. Then there is Cresselia and Darkrai. I include both of these together because they are kind of like a wombo combo, but Cresselia is found roaming the Sinnoh region. It's about level 50, and it's basically found there after bringing the Lunar Wing to the Eldritch's Sun. So if you've done that, it'll be able to actually found roaming all the Sinnoh region. However, Darkrai, though, is found on New Moon Island and requires a member card, which is also an event-exclusive item, which luckily they remedied in BDSP, so now anybody can do it. But yes, back in the day, it required the member card, and if you had that, you'd be able to get your hands on Darkrai. It'll be level 40 in Diamond and Pearl and 50 in Platinum. Shaman is next. Found in the Flower Paradise, it's level 30 and requires you to have Oak's Letter. This, again, is an event-exclusive item. Again, you may notice there were a lot of event-exclusive items that you needed to go to GameStop to get your hands on. But yes, if you had Oak's Letter, you'd be able to go to the Flower Paradise, you'd be able to meet, actually, Oak there, and eventually walk a very long path of flowers before reaching Shaman. And of course, we have Arceus in the Hall of Origin at level 80, and there is no legitimate way to actually get this. Like, there's no actual... The event did exist in the games, but there's no legit way to actually get it. It exists, but it's just not available. And then we have Pokemon Platinum, and this one has basically more or less 6 Pokemon to work with. First of all, we have Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres. All 3 of these can be found roaming, specifically the Sinnoh region. They'll be level 60, and to make them actually appear, you gotta go and talk to Professor Oak in Eterna City. Once you've done this, they will actually appear all around the region. You can go and try to capture them. However, if you also want to get your hands on Regirock, Regice, and Registeel, these guys can be found in different locations, but they require something very specific. For Regirock, it's found in the Rock Peak Ruins at level 30 and requires an event Regigigas. So yes, you need to have an event version of a Regigigas, which was kind of a distribution one, right? It was given out as a trade Pokemon. If you had that one, you'd be able to actually make these appear in the Rock Peak Ruins. However, if you had Regice as your goal, then guess what? It can be found at the Iceberg Ruins and it requires the Regigigas again. And finally, Registeel can be found at the Iron Ruins, level 30, and also requires the event version of Regigigas. Moving over to Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver, again, a lot of things here are the same. The Geodude, Voltorb, Electrode, and Koffing are again found in Team Rocket's HQ, the same way as before. Gyarados is at the Lake of Rage, still shiny and requiring Surf. Lapras is at the Union Cave at level 20, requiring Surf, and appearing, of course, every Friday, just like Drifloon kind of does. Snorlax now is actually on Route 11 or Route 12. It's level 50 and requires the EXPN card, and also reappears on Route 12 if the player defeats it on Route 11 and then enters the Hall of Fame. Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres are found again, but their actual locations have been changed. Articuno is still Seafoam Island, and it's basically after obtaining 16 badges that you can go and find it. Zapdos is on Route 10, yes, Route 10, after obtaining 16 badges, and then Moltres has been moved to Mount Silver Cave, which, again, no clue why that's been moved, but fair enough. I guess they had a reason to do that. Mewtwo is at the Cerulean Cave again, and you can just instantly go and get it. Sudowoodo reappears on Route 36, again requiring the Squirtle bottle to be able to get rid of it. And then you have Raikou, Entei, and Suicune. Raikou and Entei both are roaming Johto, and they will again be able to be caught after watching them flee from the Burned Tower. As for Suicune, however, it can be found on Route 25 or the Burned Tower. It will basically reappear in the Burned Tower if the player defeats it on Route 25 and then enters the Hall of Fame. So if you've done those things in that order, it will reappear in that location. However, if you actually see it on Route 25, you could encounter it there too, you know, it's an option. But yeah, moving on from that though. We have Lugia and Ho-Oh. Lugia is found at the Whirl Island. It's level 44 in Soul Silver and 17 Heart Gold, requiring a Silver Wing and also requiring a Tidal Bell, specifically in Soul Silver. However, for Ho-Oh, it can be found at the Bell Tower. It's going to be level 45 in Heart Gold and level 70 in Soul Silver, requiring the Rainbow Wing and also requiring the Clear Bell in the Heart Gold version. Next, we have Latias and Latios. Now, these are fun because they require you to have the Enigma Stone, which is an event-exclusive item. For Latias, you only have it in Soul Silver, and in Latios, for Latios, you only have that in Heart Gold version. They're found roaming the Kanto region. If you're playing specifically like Pokemon Heart Gold, you'll find it roaming Kanto. If you're playing Pokemon Soul Silver, you'll actually find Latias in Pewter City. And for Latios, though, it's the opposite, where it's going to be roaming Kanto in Soul Silver, but they'll be found in Pewter City in Heart Gold version. Then finally, we have one of my personal events, and that's the Embedded Tower from Heart Gold and Soul Silver. So, the Embedded Tower is a place where you can go and get Kyogre, Groudon, and Rayquaza. Now, in Heart Gold version, that's where you find Kyogre in the Embedded Tower, and it requires the Blue Orb, which is something you have to get by talking to Professor Oak. However, for Groudon, you go over to Soul Silver. That's where you can find Groudon in the Embedded Tower, and that requires the Red Orb. Now, to get Rayquaza, you need both. So yes, you need to have either a friend to play with, or you need to have both games and then trade between them to get Kyogre and Groudon in a one game. So if you trade like Kyogre from, Heart Gold over to, Soul Silver, and you have Groudon and Kyogre, and you show them to Professor Oak, he will give you the Jade Orb. Using that Jade Orb and then going to the Embedded Tower, Rayquaza will make an appearance. Finally, we've gone through the halfway point. We are at Generation 5, and this is where things get a little bit different. So, first up, we have Victini, found at Liberty Garden at level 15. It requires the Liberty Pass, which is an event-exclusive item. If you have that item, you'll be able to find Victini here. Musharna is also found at the Dream Yard. It's level 50, and it appears every Friday in the basement, and has the hidden ability Telepathy. Moving over to a more feisty Pokemon, it is Darmanitan, found at the Desert Resort. It's level 35 and requires a Rage Candy Bar. It also has the ability Zen Mode if found here. Again, a lot of early on now event-exclusive Pokemon that are actually in the overworld, which is kind of crazy. Zoroark is next, and this fella can be found in the Lost Lorn Forest. It's level 25. It requires a shiny event Raikou, Entei, or Suicune, and these three were given out as event Pokemon back in the day. If you have them, you can do a special event with this Zoroark where it will actually appear, which is really cool. Then, of course, we cannot forget about the fungus Pokemon, Fungus. Kind of replacing Voltorb here. It can be appearing at Route 6 and Route 10. Basically, here it'll be between level 20 and 30, and there are 2 on Route 6, 2 on Route 10, and they appear as fake items, just like before. And Amoonguss, which is very sus, on Route 10 can also be found at level 40. It is 2 of them, and they serve as fake items as well. Moving over to one of my personal favorite Pokemon of all time, Volcarona. Can be found at the Relic Castle. It is level 70, and it can be found after beating the Elite Four. So yes, you can actually capture yourself one, and you can get your hands on one after beating the Elite Four, and honestly, it's a really cool location. The whole area looks very cool for the encounter with Volcarona. Then we have Cobalion, Terrakion, and Virizion. Starting off with Cobalion, it's found at Mistralton Cave, level 42, and requires you to have Surf to reach it. As for Terrakion, it's found at the Victory Road, also level 42, but must have already encountered Cobalion to get it, so you need to kind of go in that order, right? And then Virizion can be found in the Pinwheel Forest, also level 42, but you must have already encountered Cobalion to be able to get either of those two. So Terrakion and Virizion cannot be encountered unless Cobalion's been done first. Next, we have 2 version exclusives. The first up is Tornadus, which can be found in Pokemon Black version, and it's roaming Unova at level 40, and you must have already entered Route 10's gates to be able to get your hands on it. As for the other one, though, that's going to be Thundurus in White version. It's also going to be found roaming Unova at level 40, but you must have already entered Route 10's gate to be able to encounter it. Then we have the 2 main legendaries, that being Reshiram and Zekrom. Reshiram is found in Pokemon Black version, in N's Castle, or the Dragon Spiral Tower, right? So you can find them in these places. It's required to catch unless party and boxes are full, in which case it is basically refought at the Dragon Spiral Tower after the credits. So you kind of are forced to kind of refight it at some point, which it requires a lot of work to get to that point, but yes, you're kind of forced to actually capture it. And then for Zekrom, it's basically the same. Found at Ent's Castle in Pokemon White version, Dragon Spiral Tower, in case you have somehow a full box and full party, which I really think is crazy because that's really difficult. And so if you want to encounter the Dragon Spiral encounter of Zekrom or Reshiram, that's actually a really, like, rare one. Like, not many people have done that, because how many people realistically fill up their entire party and their boxes before even reaching this point in the game? Like, that just seems very, very crazy. But somebody could do it, and then this case would happen. Then there's Landorus. So Tornadus and Thundurus, those are both separate, but Landorus is found in both games and is found at the Abundant Shrine. It's level 70 and requires a Tornadus and a Thundurus to be able to encounter it. Of course, those two will, of course, be required to be actually caught to be able to do this. So yeah, they must also match the I guess, original trainer's ID in this case for it to be actually doable. Finally, there is Kyurem for Black and White, and it's found at the Giant Chasm. It's level 75, and there's not really much else to say about this one. Now, Black and White 2 has a ludicrous, and I really mean ludicrous when I say it, amount of actual overworld encounters on just Pokemon event exclusives like this. So, first up is going to be Regirock, Regice, and Registeel. All these guys can be found in the underground ruins, and, well, they're pretty interesting. Regirock doesn't really require much for it. However, Regice must have an Iceberg key to be reached, and Registeel needs a Iron key to be reached. Latias can be found in White 2 version in the Dream Yard at level 68, and Latios can be found in Black 2 version in the Dream Yard at level 68. Uxie, Mesprit, and Azelf, all of these guys can also be encountered in the game, and they're going to be found after being released from the Cave of Being. As for Uxie, it's in Nacrene City. As for Mesprit, it's in Celestial Tower, and as for Azelf, it's in Route 23, and all of them will be level 65. Heatran also makes a return, this time in the Reversal Mountain. At level 68, it will require a Magma Stone for you to be able to get your hands on it. Regigigas makes another appearance too at the Twist Mountain. Level 68 is the one that it's going to be at, and it requires you to have Regirock, Regice, and Registeel in your party to be able to get it. So similar to what you did in Gen 4. Cresselia will also have a proper actual overworld encounter here at the Marvelous Bridge at level 68. It requires you to have the Lunar Wing, which takes a bit of a time to get. It's a bit of an event you got to do, like a whole story. But if you've done that story with like a whole like Ghost Girl, you will be able to get your hands on Cresselia. Then we have Crustle at the Seaside Cave. This thing is level 42, and yes, it is a Crustle, I know, but it requires you to have Chorus's MCHN to be able to actually encounter it. Fungus and Amoonguss also are here again on Route 6 and 7, as well as 11, 22, and 23. They are all appearing as fake items when you do see them. Then there is Jellicent. So there's actually an event-exclusive difference here. See, Jellicent, I guess, female version, or male version in this case, the male version can only be found in Black 2 at the Undola Bay at level 40, and it appears every Monday and has the hidden ability Damp. However, the other Jellicent in Pokemon White version 2 is also at Undola Bay, but it's the female one and only appears every Thursday with the same ability, of course, Damp. Next, we have a really cool one, and this is the shiny Haxorus from the Nature Preserve. So yes, this is an event that they recreated recently, of course, in the Indigo Disc, but this one's really cool. Basically, this Haxorus is found at the Nature Preserve at level 60, and to be able to find it, you must have already seen every Pokemon in the Unova Pokedex. So if you've done that, then you can get your hands on this special Haxorus. Moving on, we have Braviary from White 2 and Mandibuzz from Black 2. So these are exclusive to each other on Route 4. If you go to Route 4, both of these will be there depending on the game you have. So in White 2, you'll find Braviary, and it appears every Monday with the hidden ability Defiant. However, if you're playing Pokemon Black 2, you'll find Mandibuzz here at Route 4 every Thursday, and it has the ability Weak Armor. Then Volcarona will make an appearance at the Relic Castle again at level 35. The funny thing, though, is if you actually defeat it, it will respawn at level 65 if defeated. So, yeah, kind of random, but you will actually be able to get a either level 35 one, or if you want a higher level one at 65, it will just respawn for you. Then we have Cobalion, Terrakion, and Virizion, and these guys are found at Route 13 for Cobalion, Route 22 for Terrakion, and Route 11 for Virizion. They actually have the same thing. They start at level 45, but if you defeat them, they will actually respawn at level 65, which is random, but pretty cool. As for Reshiram, Zekrom, and Kyurem, they are back at it again. Reshiram is in White 2 version at the Dragon Spiral Tower at level 70 and requires a Light Stone. Zekrom is found in Pokemon Black 2 at the Dragon Spiral Tower at level 70, requiring the Dark Stone. So Light and Dark Stone are needed to encounter each of them. As for Kyurem, though, it's again at the Giant Chasm, but it will only be found after defeating or catching Reshiram in White 2 or Zekrom in Black 2 at the the Dragon Spiral Tower. If you don't actually have either of those two, you will not be able to get your hands on Kyurem. Now that we're done with Gen 5, we move on to Generation 6, the move to the 3DS and the 3D Arrow Pokemon. Starting things off, we have Snorlax at Route 7 at level 15. This thing requires the Pokeflute to be able to be actually encountered and dealt with, and it's not necessarily the most, interesting Pokemon. It's still Snorlax at the end of the day. Then we have Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres making their appearance once more. They're found at the Sea Spirit's Den at level 70, all of them, and it's after encountering it basically 10 times for Articuno, after encountering the Pokemon about 10 times roaming Kalos. This will only happen if you chose Chespin. You'll actually get Articunos, then you will be able to find it. Zapdos, though, if you encounter it 10 times roaming Kalos, it will only appear if you chose Fennekin, and Moltres will only appear if you've chosen Froakie. So, yep, you can find them all in the Sea Spirit's Den. Mewtwo, however, is found at the Unknown Dungeon, and this Unknown Dungeon is kind of a empty place. There's not really much going on here, and to get it to actually appear there, you need to first enter the Hall of Fame. Then there is a more fun one, and that's going to be Banette. So Banette can be found at the Pokemon Village, a small little place. It's between level 46 and 50, and it can be found by shaking trash cans on Thursdays. Yes, this is very strange. Don't ask me why, but if you shake trash cans on Thursdays, you can find Banettes inside of them. But that's not the only Pokemon that can be shaken to be found. Rotom also makes an appearance as the Lost Hotel. Inside, it will be found at level 38, and it can be found by shaking trash cans also on Tuesdays. So yeah, you can do it on Thursdays in the Pokemon Village for Banette, but for Rotom, you gotta do it by shaking trash cans on a Tuesday inside of the Lost Hotel. And maybe you will also find one of its alternate forms. So yeah, you have a chance of even encountering it alternate versions. Then we have the three main legendaries, Xerneas, Yveltal, and Zygarde. Xerneas is found in Pokemon X version at the Team Flare Secret HQ at level 50. It must be captured to actually progress in the story, and it will respawn immediately if you actually defeat it. As for Yveltal, it's found in Pokemon Y version, also at Team Flare Secret HQ, and the same thing here. You must capture it for the story to continue. As for Zygarde, it's found at Terminus Cave. There isn't really anything going on inside of this cave. It's pretty empty, and Zygarde is just in the middle of the room, chilling. To get it, though, you need to first enter the Hall of Fame. Next, we have Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, and we're going to speed through most of these. Voltorb, Electrode return in the same way as before. They're found as fake items. As for Raikou, Entei, and Suicune, these guys are found in the Trackless Forest. They require Lugia or Ho-Oh in your party and will appear from the 0 to the 19th minute of the hour. So only between those hours will they show up. As for Entei, it will show up between the 20th and the 39th minute, and then Suicune, it will show up between the 40th and the 59th minute. So you do require Lugia and Ho-Oh in your party to be able to do this. Then as for Lugia and Ho-Oh, for Lugia, it actually shows up in Alpha Sapphire in Sea Mawile, the Sea of Mawile, and requires a Tidal Bell. As for Ho-Oh, it's in Omega Ruby, and it also appears in the Sea of Mawile, level 50, and requires a Clear Bell. Kecleon makes a return, but it actually appears in a few different places now. It appears in Route 119, 120, so that's the same, but also in Lava Ridge Town and Moss Deep Space Center, which is random. But yes, you'll find a few of them in other places too, and again, requires the Devon Scope. The original event for Regirock, Regice, and Registeel also returned with the Desert Ruins, Island Cave, and the Ancient Tomb. Again, after actually unlocking the ruins in the Sealed Chamber, you'll be required to do a few things. For Regirock, you need Strength. For Regice, you don't really need anything, just do the puzzle. And for Registeel, you will be required to use Fly. So yes, these three will be found in an interesting way again. Latios and Latios do make a return, and they're both found on the Southern Island this time around. They're given without a battle. They do require the Eon ticket, which is event exclusive in the game. However, this time you don't need to go to GameStop to do this. Then for Kyogre and Groudon, as well as Rayquaza, they kind of appear in a similar way. Kyogre in Alpha Sapphire is at the Cave of Origin, and it will respawn if you defeat it after you enter the Hall of Fame. Groudon, again at the Cave of Origin, same thing, will respawn if not caught after entering the Hall of Fame. You will actually get it again. As for Rayquaza, it's at Sky Pillar, and the player must first capture it to actually proceed in the story, because it's kind of required for the Delta episode stuff and some of the other things happening. You kind of need the Rayquaza. Interestingly, though, Deoxys also shows up at Sky Pillar at level 80. So, yeah, a bit random, but you do need to deal with that there, too. And it respawns again if you have actually, if you end up defeating it, it will respawn again after the Hall of Fame. Now, the next set of Pokemon here are a little bit random, but first of all, you got Spiritomb, which will show up in the Sea of Mawile at level 50. You also have Uxie, as well as Mesprit and Azelf, all showing up in the Nameless Cavern. Now, for them to actually show up, you do need a few things to be very specific. First of all, requiring 3 Pokemon with maximum friendship in your party, and then you need to encounter specifically Uxie between 8 p.m. to 8:59 p.m. As for Mesprit, you need to encounter between 4 a.m. and 7:59 p.m. And then between Azov, you got 9 p.m. and 3:59 a.m. So weird timings, but you got to do that. As for Dialga and Palkia, Dialga can be found in Alpha Sapphire inside of a dimensional rift, requiring Uxie, Mesprit, and Azov in your party to be encountered. As for Palkia, same thing, a dimensional drift, but also requiring Uxie, Mesprit, and Azov in your party to be found. Heatran can be found in the Scorched Slab, a place that, I haven't really explored that much, but interestingly though, it will only be actually possible to capture it after dealing with or capturing Groudon or Kyogre, so those two need to be done first. Regigigas can be found at the Island Cave. It requires a nicknamed Regice with a cold item and a Regirock and Registeel in the party, and can be only encountered at daytime, so super random, but yep, you can still get Regigigas. As for Giratina, it also shows up in a dimensional rift, but this one requires the Dialga and Palkia in the party for you to be able to encounter it. Similar to how some of these other ones work, you kind of need both the box legendaries to get the third legendary, so that's kind of the same thing here. Cresselia can be found at the Crescent Isle. As for the other ones here, that's going to be Cavalion, Terrakion, and Virizion, which are found at the Pathless Plain, and these guys require some interesting things. Cavalion, as well as the other ones, all require basically you to have 3 Pokemon with 510 EVs in your party, and they will only appear, in this case Cavalion, Sundays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, Terrakion on Tuesdays and Saturdays, and Virizion on Mondays and Thursdays. Now, this one's really funny, but for you to get Tornadus or Thundurus, Tornadus for Omega Ruby, and of course Thundurus for Alpha Sapphire, they will be found in some storm clouds. But to get them, you require a cast form to be in your party, which is really freaking cute in my opinion. Then we have Reshiram and Zekrom. Reshiram is an Omega Ruby, and of course is the fabled cave where you can find it. It requires a level 100 Pokemon, like literally one Pokemon at level 100 in your party to be able to be found. Zekrom, same thing, in the fabled cave, and requires a level 100 in your party. Landorus can be found in some of the storm clouds as well, and requires a Tornadus and a Thundurus in your party to be encountered, and it doesn't need a cast form, which I think is pretty sad. Kyurem is the final Pokemon for Oras, and this fella can be found in the Gnarled Den at level 50. It does require, though, Reshiram and Zekrom in your party to be encountered. So that was Gen 6. Now we're going to move over to Gen 7 with Sun and Moon, of course, starting things off. First up is going to be the Alolan Exeggutor, found at Exeggutor Island. This thing is level 40. I should point that out. It's pretty heavy. But yep, you can find it there, and it's just a free encounter. Then we have all the Tapus. So Tapu Koko, Tapu Lele, Tapu Bulu, and Tapu Fini. First of all, Tapu Koko can be found at the Ruins of Conflict, and it's basically battled as part of the credits. If not caught, it can be rebattled when the player actually defeats the title. So if you defeat your title again, you can basically get it again. Tapu Lele can be found at the Ruins of Life, Tapu Bulu at the Ruins of Abundance, and of course Tapu Fini at the Ruins of Hope. As for Solgaleo and Lunala, Solgaleo in Sun version, and it's found at the Altar of the Sunny. Must be actually caught to proceed with the story, otherwise it's not possible. Lunala, though, is at the Altar of the Moon, or Moony, if you want to call it like that, and also must be caught, just for the story to continue. Then we have basically every single Ultra Beast, and these ones are kind of more interesting, in my opinion, the way they are encountered in Sun and Moon than they are in Ultra Sun and Moon, but here's what the deal is. So, first of all, Nihilego can be found at Diglett's Tunnel or Vela Volcano Park. Nihilego can basically be found at either of these locations, but only one of them can be obtained. So it's in 2 locations, but you can only capture one of them. However, moving on from that, though, we have Buzzhole, who's only found in Sun version, specifically Sun version, at Mele Mele Meadow, and there are 2 of them there. Pheromosa is found in only Moon version of the Pokemon games, and is found at the Verdant Cavern at level 60, and there are 4 of these. So yes, there are 4 Pheromosas you can capture, which is a weird number, but it doesn't end there. Zergtree can only be found in the Lush Jungle and the Memorial Hill, and you can only capture, again, one of them. As for the next, though, it is Celesteela. Celesteela, there's essentially only found in Pokemon Moon version, and it can be found at the Haina Desert or the Malia Garden, and here you can, again, only capture one of them. There are 2, but you can only capture one. And finally, Kartana also exists at specifically at level 60 at Route 17 and also at the Mali Garden, and also you can capture only one. Finally, though, we have Guzzlord, and this fella can be captured in both games at Resolution Cave at a nice level 70. Finishing off Sun and Moon is going to be Necrozma at the 10 Carat Hill. Love the name, by the way, but it's level 75, and it's only possible after capturing all the Ultra Beasts and finishing the Looker storyline in these games. So yes, you got to make sure you get all those Ultra Beasts we just mentioned, otherwise it's not possible. Now, we're about to enter the largest list so far on this entire video, and that's Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. So we're going to go through the basic ones first, and then we're going to go into the large list of Pokemon that are included in the Ultra Space Wilds. So, starting things off, we have Ghastly. So yes, Ghastly can be found in the Trainer School, and it's going to be level 19, just roaming around. Hypno is found at Hau'oli City at level 29. It's one of 3, and each Hypno has different movesets, so you can kind of get your hands on 3 of them if you want to. Electrode makes a grand reappearance once more at Team Rocket's castle, of course. You guys may remember the Rainbow Rocket episode. They're level 60, by the way, and there are 3 of them, and they all serve as fake items. And they're unobtainable basically at any point up until this point. So literally, Electrode can only be caught inside of Team Rocket's castle as 3 fake items. Yes, I'm not even kidding. It literally is unobtainable if you don't capture them here in Rainbow Rocket episode. Like, if you don't do it now, you're never going to get them. Pinsir is found at Executor Island. There's basically, I think, about 2 of them. One of them is level 42, 143, and there are 3 in total, I think. I could be wrong. I think there is a weird thing, right? I think there's 2 of them that are level 42 and 1 level 43. It's a bit odd, but still, Pinsir can be found here as an overworld encounter. Then we can't forget about Ditto, found at Route 9, as well as the Coney City. So the one on Route 9, and there's also 4 in Coney City, and they have their natures actually preset, and they must be encountered in a particular order specifically. Then we also have Frillish, which can be found in the overworld at Route 14. There's a Beware found at Hau'oli City as well. Sandygas is actually exclusive to Ultra Moon with Route 15, where you can find it at level 30. The Tapus actually return in the same way to Tapu Koko, Tapu Lele, Tapu Bula, and Tapu Fini, with Tapu Koko being in the Ruins of Conflict, Lele being in the Ruins of Life, Bulu being the Ruins of Abundance, and of course Fini being in the Ruins of Hope. Solgaleo and Lunala are a bit different though. Solgaleo in Ultra Sun is found in the Mahalo Trail, and Lunala in Ultra Moon at the Mahalo Trail. And now we have the giant list of Ultra Space Wild Pokemon. So this is a list of all these Pokemon that can be found specifically in the Ultra Space, which is a kind of specific feature, like a new feature that was added in Pokemon Ultra Sun and Moon. So for these, we have the following. See, Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres can all be found in the Cliff World. Mewtwo can be found in the Rocky World, alongside Raikou and Entei, which are basically exclusive, with Raikou being for Ultra Sun and Entei being for Ultra Moon, found in the Rocky World. Moving on from that, though, we have Suicune, which can be found in the Water World and requires a Raikou and Entei in your party to be encountered. As for Lugia and Ho-Oh, well, Lugia is to Ultra Moon version only and is found in the Water World, and Ho-Oh is exclusive to Ultra Sun and found in the Cliff World. From there, we go on to Regirock, Regice, and Registeel, all found in the Cave World. But there is still more Pokemon. Latias is in Ultra Moon, and Latios in Ultra Sun, both found in the Water World, alongside Kyogre in the Water World, which is only in Ultra Moon. Groudon is in Ultra Sun, and only found in the Cave World. Going on from that, though, we have the Rayquaza, which is only found in the Cliff World, but you need to have Groudon and Kyogre in your party to capture it. Then we have Uxie, Mesprit, and Azelf, all found in the Water World, as well as Dialga and Palkia, which are respectively found in the Rocky World and the Cave World, but they're also exclusive, with Dialga being in Ultra Sun and Palkia in Ultra Moon. And then we also have Heatran, found in only specifically the Cave World in Ultra Sun, and Regigigas being exclusive to Ultra Moon, found also in the Cave World. But it doesn't end there. Giratina is found also in the Cave World and requires Dialga and Palkia in your party. Cresselia is found in the Cliff World. And we do also have Cobalion, Terrakion, Virizion, Tornadus, Thundurus, and Reshiram, Zekrom, which are all also basically a little bit different because Tornadus is exclusive to Ultra Sun, Thundurus to Ultra Moon, Reshiram to Ultra Sun, Zekrom to Ultra Moon. And then, finally, Landorus, which is found in the Cliff World and requires both Tornadus and Thundurus to be able to be actually captured, with same thing being for Kyurem, found in the Water World, needing Reshiram and Zekrom in their party. Finishing off the Ultra Space, at least for the regular Pokemon, we have Xerneas and Yveltal, Xerneas being exclusive to Ultra Sun, Yveltal to Ultra Moon, found in the Rocky World and then the Cliff World, with Zygarde being the final one, found at Resolution Cave, is going to be in its 50% form. And this is outside the Ultra Wormhole space. So yes, this one is just a little bit different on its own. So moving on to the Ultra Space Pokemon. So I guess the Ultra Beast in this case. Nihilego is found in the Ultra Deep Sea. Buzzhole is found at the Ultra Jungle in Ultra Sun. Pheromosa is found in Ultra Moon in the Ultra Desert. Xurkitree is found at the Ultra Plant. Celesteela is only an Ultra Moon version of the games and is only found in the Ultra Crater. Kartana is an Ultra Sun version specifically and in the Ultra Forest. And then Guzzlord is in the Ultra Ruin and can be encountered as many times. So all the Ultra Beasts can be encountered as many times as you want to. However, there is a bit different things for the other Pokemon here. In case of Necrozma, it's found at Mount Lanakila. at level 65, and then Stakataka and Ultra Moon version is found at Pony Grove, and there are 2 of them, and Blacephalon is found at Ultra Sun version as the kind of other exclusive at Pony Grove, and there's also 2 of them as well. Now the list is going to get a little bit shorter, so moving on to Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, which are the final Gen 7 games in this case, we got ourselves a very much shorter list. Electrode, again, shows up here. There are 4 of them serving as fake items. You also have Snorlax at Route 12 and 16 once more, requiring the Poke Flute. As for Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres, they're back at Seafoam Island, but the Power Plant, and of course the Victory Road, like they originally were back in, red, blue, and yellow. As for Mewtwo, though, it's back at it again at the Cerulean Cave at level 70 after entering the Hall of Fame. Then we have Galarian Slowpoke at the Wedgehurst Station in Pokemon Sword and Shield. Yes, so this is the basically only Pokemon you can find like this, and yeah, there aren't really many overworld encounters in these games, so let me explain. Basically, Galarian Slowpoke will only appear from patch 1.1.0 onward. So if you don't have 1.1.0 or any earlier version, it will not show up, but if you have it, if you go to Wedgehurst Station, you will find a Galarian Slowpoke. But that's the only actual Pokemon. The only other ones are Zacian, Zamazenta, and Eternatus, which only basically appear because you're kind of forced to do a storyline, a post-game storyline involving Swordward and basically Shieldbird, which are the 2 brothers. And it's kind of a really stupid post-game storyline, but that's the only way to get Zacian and Zamazenta. As for Eternatus, though, it's found at the Tower Summit, and you need to fight it in a max raid battle in its Eternamax form, requiring you to kind of do this to be able to continue with the story, and capture is basically guaranteed upon defeating it. As for the DLC for specifically Sword and Shield, that's where things get a little bit different, okay? First of all, in the Crown Tundra, you've got a massive amount of Pokemon that can be captured. First of all, in the Dynamax Adventure. So I'm going to go through the Dynamax Adventure Pokemon first. In this case, you have Articuno, you've got Zapdos, you've got Moltres, you've also got Mewtwo, Raikou, Entei, Suicune, right? These are all available in both games. However, you also have Lugia, which is specifically exclusive to Shield version. You also have Ho-Oh, which is exclusive to the Sword version, and they're basically obtainable by specifically those players only. You can also, though, join your friend if they have the other version game. You can join them and still capture it. As for moving on from that list, though, you still have Regirock, Regice, and Registeel. You got Latios, Latias, Kyogre, Groudon, Rayquaza, Uxie, Mesprit, Azelf, Dialga, and Palkia, which are exclusive to Sword and Shield. Heatran, Regigigas, Giratina, Cresselia, Cobalion, Terrakion, Virizion, Tornadus, Thundurus, Reshiram, Zekrom. Of course, we can't forget Landorus and Kyurem. Finishing it off, we also have Keldeo, which requires a Cobalion, Terrakion, and Virizion in your party to be encountered. And then we also have Xerneas, which is exclusive to Sword version, and Yveltal to Shield version, but you can also still capturing if you're playing with a friend. However, Zygarde is also found in a special Dynamax Adventure. Tapu Koko, Tapu Lele, Tapu Bulu, Tapu Fini, Solgaleo, Lunala, Nihilego does not appear until the player actually does a special story, so you gotta do a special story to make all the Ultra Beasts. And when I say all the Ultra Beasts, I really mean all the Ultra Beasts will not appear unless you've done this special story. So if you want to get your hands on Nihilego, Buzzhole, Pheromosa, Zergtree, Celesteela, Kartana, Guzzlord, Necrozma, Stakataka, and Blacephalon, you need to do a special story. So for Necrozma especially, you got to require to complete an extra adventure to even get Necrozma to appear. The rest of them, though, you just got to do the specific story called They Came from the Ultra Beyond. However, there are a few other Pokemon in here. Now, so far, I only told you about the special max raid Pokemon, but there are a few other things you can encounter. So, for example, I mentioned earlier that there are a few things that are a little bit different. Like, one of these things, as an example, is the Galarian Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres. Galarian Articuno is found roaming the Crown Tundra and requires you to finish one of the special stories to be able to encounter it. Galarian Zapdos is also found in the wild area roaming around, and you literally will see it running around, and also requires the story to be completed. As for Galarian Moltres, it will be found roaming the Isle of Armor and requires you to do the story as well. Now, I did say earlier that Regirock, Regice, and Registeel can be found in the Max Lairs or the Dynamax Adventures, but actually they are instead found in a specific little quest. They're actually required to complete a specific story called the Terrible Titans Lurking Locked Away, and they're found in different kind of locations around the Crown Tundra. Regirock in the Rock Peak Ruins, Regice in the Iceberg Ruins, and Registeel in the Iron Ruins. So they are a little bit more special, and they are required to finish a special story. Regigigas can be found at the Giant's Bed at level 100. It's fought in a solo max raid battle and requires all 5 legendary titans in your party, and we've only mentioned so far 3 of them, the original Regis, but there are 2 more. So, for Regieleki and Regidrago, they basically are found in the Split Decisions ruins. The player must choose between the two. Basically, you have to make a choice. Do you want Regieleki or Regidrago? Then the remaining Titan must then be traded for, and one of them is required to complete the Terrible Titans quest, right? So you need to do that, and by doing this, by having these two in your party, you'll be able to go get your hands on the Regigigas at level 100. Also, we can't forget Spiritomb at Balamiri Lake. This thing is level 72 and requires you to speak to 32 online avatars. Because back in Sword and Shield, you used to have this thing where, like, you can kind of see the ghosts of other players kind of showing up on your screen if other people were online. So you got to have Nintendo Switch Online to do this. But if you did do that, talk to 32 of these people and you will make it appear. And finally, we have Calyrex and Glastrier, as well as Calyrex and Spectrier at the Crown Shrine. The player basically has to choose here between a Glastrier or a Spectrier. The remaining one will then be traded for, and the player then battles the Calyrex in its Ice Rider, well, if you chose Glastrier form, or the Shadow Rider if you chose Spectrier form. And after battling and capturing both Pokemon at the same time, you'll have them, and you would have completed the story called The Secret Bonds of Sovereign and Steed. With Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, we have a few different changes made. First of all, we have the changes to a lot of the legendaries like Articuno, Zapdos, Moltres, which are all found at Ramanas Park inside of the Kanto room, requiring the Kanto Slate to be encountered. As for Mewtwo, it's found at the, again, Ramanas Park, but at the Genome room, requiring a Genome Slate. If you want to get some of the Johto Pokemon, like in this case Raikou, Entei, and Suicune, they're found at the Johto room and require a Johto Slate. If you want to also get your hands on Lugia and Ho-Oh, those require two different things. So Lugia requires a Squall room, which requires the Squall Slate, but as for Ho-Oh, it's inside of the Rainbow room, requiring a Rainbow Slate. Regirock is also found at the Discovery room, Regice at the same place, as well as Registeel. They all require the Discovery Slate. Moving on to Latios and Latias, these two are found in the Soul room and require a Soul Slate. As for the big boys, Kyogre, Groudon, and Rayquaza, they're all in different locations. Kyogre is in the Oceanic room, requiring a Oceanic Slate. As for Groudon, it's at the Tectonic room, requiring a Tectonic Slate. And Rayquaza is at the Stratospheric room, requiring a Stratospheric Slate. But that's pretty much all the stuff for that. I mean, there are still a few Pokemon that we can talk about, but as for the Ramanas Park, those are the Pokemon. But there are a few more things. Drifloon makes a reappearance at the Valley Windworks at level 22. It appears every Friday. Spiritomb once more can be found on Route 209, and again basically requires you as the player to use the Odd Keystone on a hollowed tower there and talk to 32 different basically characters or named NPCs in the Grand Underground, similar to what you did before. Rotom is again in the Old Chateau after receiving the National Pokedex at night only. Mesprit and Azelf reappear again. They are found at the Acuity Cavern, or Uxie is at the Acuity Cavern after defeating Cyrus for the last time. Mesprit is at the roaming of Sinnoh, so it's basically just roaming around the whole region after defeating Cyrus for the last time, and then also seeing Mesprit in the Verity Cavern. And then, of course, we have Azelf at the Valor Cavern after defeating Cyrus for the last time. Dialga and Palkia reappear at Spear Pillar like they did before. And lucky us, Heatran is back at Stark Mountain, and it's again going to be found after talking to Buck and his grandfather in the survival area. Regigigas makes a reappearance at Snowpoint Temple, being the same way as before, requiring you to have a Regirock, Regice, and Registeel to be encountered. Giratina is back at Turnback Cave, so yes, you don't get to go to the Distortion World, unfortunately, but it is at Turnback Cave at least. And finally, Cresselia is roaming around the Sinnoh region and basically can be found after bringing the Lunar Feather to Eldritch's son. Then there's of course also Shaman at the Flower Paradise, and finally Darkrai at New Moon Island, and finishing it off, there is of course going to be Arceus at the Hall of Origin. So we're reaching the end of this video, but we're now at Pokemon Legends Arceus. Now this game is a little different, right? Because all the Pokemon in this game are actually in the overworld. You do see them all around you all the time, but there are a few things that should be kept in mind. Some of these Pokemon are event exclusive, right? So these will not be encountered in other ways. And the first one is going to be the Shiny Ponyta. Yes, the Shiny Ponyta can be found at Horseshoe Plains. It's level 15, and is doing a request 19 called a Peculiar Ponyta. So you just get a free encounter with a Ponyta that you can capture. Then you also have the Unknowns, which are scattered throughout the Hisui region. These things are everywhere, and you do need them for some of the quests, but definitely worthwhile to capture them, and they are kind of these weird little encounters, like special in-game events. Then during Request 20, called the Mysterious Will-O-the-Wisp, you gotta get your hands on Chimchar. It's found at the Obsidian Fieldlands, and is part of the questline. However, during Mission 21, the Researcher of Myths, you'll find an Alpha Vespiquen in the Grueling Grove, and it's gonna be a heavy level 60. However, during Mission 5, a request from Mai, you will actually go to the Obsidian Fieldlands again, but this time it will be against a Alpha Cricketune. That will be level 12, so it's one of the first things you encounter. However, there is a more creepy one, and that's going to be specifically Request 22, Eerie Apparitions in the Night, and this is to find a Spiritomb that's hiding in the Shrouded Ruins. It's going to be level 60, so definitely bring a strong team. Lucky for us, Uxie makes a reappearance during Mission 22, the Plate of the Lakes, as well as Mesprit and Azoth. They all show up in this one same mission, and they can be found in Akiti Cavern, Verity Cavern, and Valor Cavern, all at level 70. As for Dialga and Palkia, those two also show up at the Temple of Sinnoh at level 65. So, for Dialga, it's during Mission 18, atop Mount Coronet. If the player chose Adaman during Mission 14, you will actually get to, well, encounter Dialga in this case. However, if we go on the other side of the end, though, for Palkia during Mission 18 atop Mount Coronet, if the player chose Irida during Mission 14, you will actually encounter this one instead. So it's a little bit interesting. Gotta do the counterpart. So there's that, like, you know, they gotta do the counterpart option, which will, you know, which is Mission 19. So if you choose Adaman, for example, in that version, you will actually, in Mission, 14, you will instead get Palkia. So it's a little bit weird, it's a little bit strange, but yeah, you can basically get these two in this game. Heatran can be found at the Lava Dome Sanctum at level 70 during Mission 23, the Plate of the Fire Spit Island. Regigigas is back at it again at the Snowpoint Temple. I mean, this dude has been chilling in Snowpoint for like millennia at this point. But yes, it can be found there at level 70 specifically. It's during Mission 25, the Plate of Snowpoint Temple. Giratina can also be found in its origin form at the Turnback Cave. It is going to be level 70, and it's going to be during Request 91 on the Trail of Giratina. Moving over, we're now at Cresselia, which can be found at the Moonview Arena at level 70. It's during Mission 24, the Plate of the Moonview Arena. Phione can be found at the Seaside Hollow. It's between level 33 and 36, and it's during a request called, number 66, the Sea's Legends. I've actually done this one myself. It was really fun. I made a whole tutorial on how to do it. They're found in this weird cave in a kind of underwater. It's really strange. I don't know why they plopped them there, but they're there. They exist. Now, Darkrai has got a really cool event. It's found at the Coronet Highlands at level 70, so if the player has save data from Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, you can do the special request number 93, the Darksome Nightmare. So to activate it, you need to have save data from Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl on your console. As for Shaman, it has a similar event. It's found at the Floaro Gardens, where the garden will actually be kind of dead flowers until you actually encounter it, which will make it show up. It's level 70, but for the player to actually have it, you need to have save data of Sword and Shield. So you need to have save data of Sword and Shield on your console, otherwise it will not show up. But if you do have that, then you will get a request numbered 92, and also called a Token of Gratitude. Manaphy appears as well at the Seaside Hollow during Request 66, the Sea's Legend. So it's the same as where we find Phione. It's kind of a similar part of it. It's actually part of the same quest. As for the Alpha Hisuian Zoroark, this thing is found in Akiti Cavern at level 58. It's during Mission 17, the Trial of the Lake Akiti. Then we have Request 94, Incarnate Forces of Hisui. Now this is required for you to get your hands on 4 Pokemon. Yes, 4. That means Tornadus in its incarnate form, Thundurus in its incarnate form, Landorus in the incarnate form, and Enamorus, a brand new Pokemon, yes, in its incarnate form. These are all done in this way, but they're all found in different locations. Tornadus in Bone Chill Wastes, Thundurus in Thundurus in this case, in Cobalt Coastlands, and Landorus in Romanus Island, finishing it off with Enamorus at the Scarlet Bog. Finally, we have Alpha Hisuian Gudra, which is at Verity Cavern at level 58 during Mission 15, the Trial of Lake Verity. And then, of course, Alpha Overquill at Valor Cavern at level 58 during Mission 16, the Trail of Lake Valor. So there's a bit of a trails for each one of the lakes. And so we've reached Scarlet and Violet. So here you guys can actually encounter some interesting things. First of all, you guys know the Titan Pokemon will already appear. So the Titan Cloth, Titan Bombatier, Titan Orthworm, Titan Great Tusk, and Titan Iron Thread, as well as Titan Tatsugiri. All these guys will show up for you during your story. But you can also encounter them again after defeating them as part of the Path of Legends storyline. So yes, you will afterwards be able to basically find them here again, which is kind of funny, but yeah, they'll be here, and they're found in the same locations they normally are. Koraidon and Miraidon, respectively to Scarlet and Violet, can be found in the Area Zero depths, again, after completing the Way Home storyline. So after you completed the full story of the game, the main story of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, everything, you'll be able to encounter them again at the bottom of the Area Zero depths. Then we have the Ruinous Four. These are like special new legendaries that require a very long quest line to do. You got to talk to like one of your teachers in the school. Once you've spoken to the teacher, you can do the quest where you got to go and find these giant like stakes, pillars, whatever you want to call them, all around the place. And once you found all of them, you'll be able to unlock the locations where these guys can be found. So Ting Lu can be found at the Ground Blight Shrine, Chien Pao at the Ice Wren Shrine, Wuqian at the Grass Wither Shrine, and Chiyu at the Fire Scourge Shrine. All going to be level 70 when you encounter them. Finishing it off, we have the Teal Mask, where we have Ariados, which can be found at the Timeless Woods at level 65. It is only during the Perrin quest, the Blood Moon Beast storyline, that you can encounter it. And yes, it's just a cool little, like, overall Pokemon. However, you also have Blood Moon Ursaluna, which also is in the Timeless Woods at level 70, and also only is going to be appearing during this storyline, and is guaranteed to be captured once you try to catch it. Ogerpon can also show up at the dreaded Den. It was level 20 if caught before completing the 3 main storylines, and 70 if after capturing, basically, like, you know, after doing it, and that's a guaranteed capture, so kind of a cool level, though. Okidogi, Munkidori, and Pheasantipede. So these guys are going to be impossible to capture after completing the main storyline of the Teal Mask. Okidogi is found at the Paradise Barrens, Munkidori is the Wistful Fields, and Pheasantipede at the Oni Mountain. So those are the last ones, guys. That's it for the video, guys. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.